If your favorite plotline mysteriously vanished on General Hospital, it wasn't suspense, it was neglect. The range of viewing history on display here is impressive. The Young and the Restless, Ryan's Hope, Loving, All My Children, One Life to Live, and, for primetime indulgence, Dallas, Knots Landing, and Dynasty. In other words, this is not casual channel surfing, this is a resume. Which makes the current state of General Hospital all the more irritating, because experience tends to sharpen expectations, especially when the writing insists on dulling them. The romantic pairings, at least, still show signs of life. Gio and Emma register as a believable couple, as do Michael and Jacinda. Both sets have the rare quality the genre depends on and routinely forgets how to create: chemistry. When the show allows characters to connect like human beings, rather than plot delivery systems, it briefly remembers what it is supposed to be doing. Naturally, that competence immediately gets interrupted by the time-honored soap tradition of treating obvious story momentum like a dangerous object. Marco is being positioned as redeemable, and the hope is simple. He eventually turns on his father, particularly when Lucas becomes a target. The expectation is not subtle heroism, it is basic narrative decency. If a character is going to be written with a conscience, then that conscience should eventually appear on screen. Meanwhile, Dante's priorities are begging for adult supervision. The notion of keeping Gio and Rocco separated is not complicated. It is irresponsible. Sonny, of all people, being the voice of reason here is almost funny. Except it is also necessary. Gio and Rocco need their father present, not performing moral gymnastics while the family structure collapses around him. And then there is the blackmail plot, which is practically waving a sign that reads, "Resolve me." Sidwell blackmailing Sonny over the killing of Dalton should not remain compartmentalized gossip. It should trigger a chain reaction. Sonny tells Jason, and Britt finally tells Jason the truth, that Sidwell was the one who killed Dalton. The pieces are already on the board. Refusing to connect them is not suspense. It is procrastination with mood lighting. Sidwell's audacity only compounds the problem. Showing up at Sonny's house to blackmail him is the kind of decision that is supposed to backfire spectacularly. If the story insists on giving villains nerve, the least it can do is give consequences equal ambition. Jason, in particular, needs a reality check. Chasing Britt is a self-inflicted distraction. If she does not care about anyone but herself, then the appropriate response is not romantic pursuit. It is focusing on the immediate threat and handling the Sidwell situation like the professional problem solver the show claims he is. At the same time, the domestic storylines are stuck in a peculiar limbo where characters behave as if growth is optional. Curtis and Portia treating Trina like a small child, hesitating to tell her about their divorce as though she is incapable of processing adulthood, is less protective and more patronizing. Divorce is difficult at any age. That does not justify infantilizing a grown woman to preserve parental comfort. In a rare moment of progress, the peace between Sonny and Rick is welcome. Cordiality is not a betrayal of drama. It is a different kind of tension, the kind that can crack at any moment. The hope, of course, is that the show understands how to sustain it, rather than sabotaging it the second chaos gets bored. Then there is the matter of the show's selective memory, which has become a recurring character in its own right. Nathan's disappearance, whatever it was supposed to mean, has apparently been filed under "forget it ever happened." He is back at work as though nothing occurred, and the cast behaves as though curiosity is a discontinued emotion. Long-running soaps survive on continuity. Pretending a mystery never existed is not continuity. It is narrative negligence. If that were the only offense, it might be survivable. Unfortunately, the writing also insists on selling storylines that feel less like drama and more like punishment. Willow marrying Drew, despite being repulsed by him, lands as degrading rather than complex. Doubling down with Carly, including intimacy framed around revulsion, is not daring storytelling. It is an ugly premise dressed up as romance, and it plays as demeaning to women rather than edgy. When a show writes forced intimacy as entertainment, the appropriate response is not applause, it is expecting better. Which brings the conversation back to the larger structural problem: villains. General Hospital once had a proper gallery of chaos: Helena Cassadine as the definitive menace, Heather as gleefully unhinged, Stavros as operatic evil, Faison as the periodically resurfacing nightmare. Many of those archetypes are gone or aged out, and the show now struggles to produce the kind of sustained threat that makes a super couple worth watching. A great super couple is not built on flirtation alone. It requires danger with frequency and consequence. Luke and Laura worked because the Cassadines never let them rest. So the essential question is straightforward. Which past character, currently off-screen, could be reshaped into a recurring threat with the endurance to last decades, appearing on and off as a reliable source of peril? That is the kind of engine a soap needs if it wants younger viewers to invest, not just older audiences to remember how good it used to be. And while the show is at it, it might also explain why everyone seems to face repercussions except Emma, who functions as the righteous ringleader immune to fallout. If accountability is going to exist, it should not be treated as an optional feature available only to select characters. All of this is, of course, watched the way soaps are traditionally consumed, with routines, multitasking, snacks, and the occasional drink, because nothing pairs better with melodrama than domestic productivity and sugar. But routines do not excuse lazy plotting. The audience can fold laundry and still notice when the writing stops trying. If the show wants to reclaim its footing, the solutions are not exotic. Commit to the couples that actually work. Let redemption arcs pay off. Stop treating adult children like toddlers. Connect the Blackmail storylines with the urgency they demand. Restore continuity with basic respect. And if the show insists on manufacturing romance out of revulsion, it can expect the inevitable reaction. Viewers will not swoon, they will recoil. If you thought Drew and Willow's wedding was going to be romantic, brace yourself. This is what happens when a big day gets 3 guests and 0 dignity. Drew and Willow's wedding will go down as a masterclass in how to stage a supposedly monumental event with the energy of a forgotten staff meeting. 3 people showed up. 3. At that point, it is not a wedding so much as a scheduling error with vows. If the goal was to prove that romance is dead and attendance is optional, the production executed flawlessly. Elsewhere, Trina and Portia continue to confirm loudly, publicly, and with impeccable consistency that they are absolutely mother and daughter. The truth is clearly circling the runway, and the eventual reveal cannot arrive fast enough, mainly because Trina is still walking around unaware of what Mommy has been up to, while Portia behaves as though basic decency is a negotiable expense. The way Jordan is being treated is not merely over the line, it is a full relocation to another moral zip code. And in the middle of all this, the man who actually raised Trina has been erased so thoroughly that it is as if he never existed. She once insisted that biology would not change what they had, and yet he has been absent for years, replaced by a narrative convenience and a collective amnesia. Trina's worldview does not help. There is a particular brand of self-importance in assuming both parents' lives should orbit around one person's preferences, as though they were hired to provide round-the-clock emotional service. The belief that her father loves her so completely that he would simply avoid dating Jordan if she disapproved is especially rich. Nothing says maturity like attempting to manage adult relationships from a position of absolute certainty and minimal perspective. That immaturity shows up in more than attitude. The presentation also leans hard into little girl, and the contrast between how she wants to be taken and how she chooses to act is becoming difficult to ignore. And then there is Molly, demonstrating the timeless soap tradition of seeing something suspicious and immediately deciding that silence is a personality trait. Watching someone notice a problem, say nothing, and walk away as though accountability were contagious remains baffling. Even the brown dog seemed offended. The reasonable response would have involved questions, not passive acceptance, and a brisk exit. The final stretch of the episode shifts into full melodrama, beginning with Jason in peak emotionally restrained mode. Britt, battered by heartbreak, shaky injections, and hard truths, is gently tucked into bed as though she is a wounded soldier and he is the silent chaperone assigned by fate. She passes out. He says nothing. He simply sits by her bedside, performing watchfulness like an art form. The effect is less romantic guardian and more human statue with excellent hair. A man so committed to quiet loyalty that dialogue itself appears optional. At the hospital, Lucas remains locked in a tense, meaningful standoff with a slice of Joss's homemade pie, treating pastry as if it holds the solution to his entire family history. Felicia enters with the emotional briefing. Bobby had flaws, but she forgave, and she would not want Lucas giving up on Carly. Lucas offers minimal response, but the pie absorbs the message dutifully, as though it has been promoted to therapist on staff. The subtext is not subtle. Eat the pie, forgive the sister, and stop dragging everyone through an endurance test disguised as moral outrage. Then Sidwell arrives at Sonny's house with the kind of confidence usually reserved for people who have never faced consequences. He produces evidence tying Sonny and Laura to Dalton's body and proceeds to pitch his demands: the peers, cooperation, and protection for himself and Marco. Naturally, after attempting to blackmail a mob boss and a political heavyweight, he thanks Sonny for the meeting like he has just concluded a polite networking lunch. The lack of survival instinct is almost admirable, in the way a bad decision can be impressive when it is committed with full commitment and no self-awareness. Right on cue, Sonny gets a call from Laura, shaken, frightened, and asking for help. Sonny responds with calm, controlled assurance. They will figure it out, which is not comforting so much as ominous, because that tone generally translates to someone has begun their countdown. Sidwell's mistake is not the blackmail itself. It is the assumption that presenting leverage automatically equals control. At WSB headquarters, Jack Brennan performs the standard intelligence agency routine. Joss finds troubling tech, and he calls it classified, meaning it is dangerous. They want it, and she is expected to stop thinking immediately. He insists everything he has done was to protect her, the classic justification of people who cause chaos and then demand applause for the cleanup. Mid-scene, he gets a call and delivers a single stunned, "Oh my God!" Then the story refuses to provide context, reaction, or clarity. The cliffhanger is pure WSB, maximum secrecy, minimum information, and just enough panic to keep everyone trapped. Meanwhile, Carly returns to a dark, quiet house with none of the comforting signs of family resolution. No Joss, no Lucas, no reconciliation, not even the mercy of pie. She hears a noise by the patio and reaches for a fireplace poker, because when trust issues meet excellent reflexes, household decor becomes a weapon. Then a hand grips her shoulder. She spins, and there he is, Valentine. Bloodied, beaten, and still smirking, as though he has simply taken a scenic route back to the center of attention. "I told you we'd meet again," he says, as if being battered is merely an inconvenient detour on the way to drama. Carly is stunned silent, and Valentine looks like he escaped a bunker solely to reinsert himself into the most combustible storyline available. This week delivered dream demons, secret tech, family feuds, emotional pie warfare, blackmail, threats, and a return designed to detonate the room. Port Charles, in its infinite restraint, chose not to end quietly. It chose spectacle, chaos, and the kind of mayhem that makes peaceful feel like a foreign language. Now the obvious questions hang in the air. What did Jack hear on that call, and why does it sound like trouble with a capital letter? Is Vaughn actually gone, or merely repositioned for maximum spy theatrics? Will Lucas finally eat the pie and pick up the phone, or will he continue letting dessert carry the emotional labor? Can Laura stay ahead of Sidwell's scheming long enough for Sonny's solution to arrive? And most importantly, when Carly faces Valentine, will the first impulse be a kiss or a kill? In this town, either option would be perfectly on brand. Stop calling Gio a hero. Heroes don't hide the truth while someone almost dies. Gio's decision-making has all the maturity of a plot twist, which is fitting, because it keeps landing in the same place. Avoid consequences, look noble, and let everyone else absorb the fallout. Yes, Rocco is responsible for his own actions. Danny and Charlotte too. That is not the issue. The issue is that Gio is the adult who keeps behaving like the slightly taller teenager in the room. When Rocco got drunk, withholding the truth from Rocco's parents and choosing not to call for help was not a brave act of loyalty. It was a calculated attempt to stay out of trouble and win points with Rocco by playing the hero. Unfortunately, hero is a strange label to claim while someone nearly dies. That call was never Gio's to make. And then there is the larger pattern, Gio and Emma repeatedly pulling kids into adult chaos that the kids never needed and certainly never asked for. Even if Gio did not know Rocco would be at Sonny's place, the end result is the same. More damage, more complications, more fuel tossed onto Rocco's legal issues, and everyone else unlucky enough to be in the living room when the trouble arrived. Adults do not get credit for being surprised by the consequences of the mess they insist on making. Dante's response, banning Rocco from seeing Gio, has the emotional logic of a slammed door. It is wrong and it will not work. The more a teenager is told no, the more determined that teenager becomes to sprint toward the forbidden thing like it is a finish line. Dante may be trying to protect Rocco, but the strategy is practically designed to strengthen the bond he wants to sever. Worse, Dante is wasting every opportunity to build an honest relationship with Gio, and the longer he keeps posturing, the more likely he is to lose Rocco's trust along with it. Calling Gio selfish while sabotaging the relationship at every turn is not parenting. It is projection with a badge. The uncomfortable truth is that Gio and Dante are more alike than either would ever admit, both stubbornly convinced they are the reasonable one while refusing to do the one thing that might help: stop talking and start listening. Eventually, they could reach something resembling a father and son friendship, but that requires dialogue, not ultimatums and hero complexes. Meanwhile, the hospital, supposedly the beating heart of the entire premise, has been treated like an afterthought. For a show with hospital in the name, the setting sometimes feels less like a medical center and more like a deserted set from a post-apocalyptic spin-off. The title promises triage, the screen delivers emptiness. On the romance front, the Cody and Molly momentum keeps getting interrupted right when it looks ready to ignite. The familiar soap tactic is in full effect. The endless back and forth, the deliberate near misses, the manufactured delays until the pairing finally happens, whenever that is scheduled to become convenient. Cody deserves happiness, and the idea of steering him toward Britt is not romantic tension, it is narrative malpractice. That path has already been shut down, and the only reason it keeps lingering is because someone insists on pretending rejection is a cliffhanger. Molly, notably, did not witness that shutdown, which means the misunderstanding is being preserved like a prized possession. Then there is Sidwell, loudly claiming he has more than enough power to take down Sonny and Mayor Laura Collins. Naturally, this raises the obvious question. If the leverage is real, why is it still a speech instead of an action? Either something is stopping him, fear, timing, self-preservation, or the more likely answer is that the threat is inflated beyond its actual substance. Declaring dominance is not the same as having it, and the longer the follow-through is delayed, the more the bluff starts to sound like performance. Technically, the production has its own set of baffling choices, especially with sound. Dramatic scenes do not require music that competes with dialogue, as though clarity is optional. When viewers have to replay scenes to catch basic conversation, such as Laura and Kevin discussing major events, the problem is not attention span, it is the mix. Bar scenes are no better, buried under muffled delivery and audio levels that seem allergic to microphones. Either elevate the mic work or demand clearer projection, because important plot whispered under background noise is not atmosphere. It is sabotage. There are also those oddly specific details that become impossible to unhear once noticed, like the countertop in Carly's kitchen somehow sounding wooden when something is placed on it. An unintentionally loud reminder that the illusion is sometimes held together by sound effects doing their own improvisation. Not everything is a complaint, however, which is the more surprising development. Recent episodes, particularly Thursday and Friday, captured a sharper, older energy that actually resembled the show at its best. The acting landed, the writing felt purposeful, the setups were clean, and the cameos were integrated in a way that served the story rather than hijacking it. That is what happens when momentum is built instead of constantly postponed. Even a brief return from Cyrus, dream or not, was enough to spark genuine excitement, which says a great deal about what the current narrative has been missing. Characters who arrive with weight, danger, and consequence, not just noise. In short, the material is capable of being excellent, and occasionally proves it. It simply needs fewer adults behaving like teenagers, fewer villains selling threats instead of delivering them, fewer romances stalled by routine distraction, and far less audio engineering determined to make dialogue feel like a scavenger hunt. Here's the truth. Sidwell isn't the biggest problem in this story. The writing is. Laura Collins remains one of the few characters who can still make righteous vengeance look like a civic duty. The appetite to see her finally turn the tables on Sidwell is entirely reasonable, mostly because Sidwell has spent months behaving like the uninvited DZs every storyline catches sooner or later. Watching him squirm would be less revenge fantasy and more basic narrative hygiene. And yet, the show insists on treating Sidwell as an all-access pass to chaos. This is a man who has allegedly attempted to kill Anna, Jason, Luxity, a doctor, Maxie, and Christina, has successfully killed a judge and a professor, engineered violence against Rocco in juvenile detention, and has threatened everyone from the mayor to Sonny. At this point, the list is so expansive, it stops being menace and becomes satire. The logical next step is suspecting he shot Drew as well, because why not? The writing has already established that Sidwell can commit crimes like he's collecting rewards points, and consequences apparently remain on backorder. Which raises the most embarrassing question of all: what exactly is the WSB for? An agency tasked with monitoring high-level threats somehow manages to miss a walking catastrophe with a body count, while devoting attention to trailing Joss as if teenage proximity is the greatest danger in town. If Sidwell has this much reach, the agency should know his schedule, his contacts, and his preferred brand of villain cologne. Instead, the narrative offers a security apparatus so ineffective, it feels less like incompetence and more like a deliberate joke. Without the courtesy of a punchline, the same selective intelligence infects the civilian side of the story. Britt's situation is painted with escalating urgency, complete with the painful visual of a notably large stomach injection needle, because nothing says compassion like medical horror as background decoration. Yet the most obvious move goes unmade. Britt should warn Jason before Sidwell decides she's simply the next loose end to handle. In a town where villains operate with administrative efficiency, withholding information is not caution. It is assisted self-destruction. Meanwhile, Laura's treatment is a masterclass in sabotaging a competent woman for plot convenience. The setup is already messed up, and then comes the pièce de résistance. Sidwell leaves, Laura discovers incriminating photos, and the next move is a nap. Not a call to Sonny, not an immediate warning, not a strategic pivot. A nap. It is difficult to craft a more effective way to make a character look less like a seasoned operator and more like someone buffering mid-scene. Naturally, the town's investigative instincts remain equally selective elsewhere. Maxie's accident receives the kind of follow-up reserved for minor wardrobe malfunctions. Essentially none. In a place where a suspicious sneeze would normally trigger a conspiracy board, a serious incident slides by without the mild inconvenience of questions. Then there is the longing for bigger, messier returns, Cyrus and Nell reappearing as genuine threats rather than a dream sequence. If nothing else, those two at least understood the assignment. Commit to the villainy and let the fallout land. Instead, the show diverts energy into moral theater, most blatantly through Willow. The attempt to frame her as a protective figure, specifically protecting Scout, is almost admirable in its audacity. Willow has a long history of failing to prioritize her own children, and the current storyline only reinforces the pattern. Drew and his child are treated as the urgent center, while her own kids remain a narrative accessory. The result is not motherly sacrifice. It is a portrait of parental obligation treated like an optional subscription. The critique is not subtle. A mother does not repeatedly place a man and his child above her own children unless those children are being used as leverage. Weaponizing a baby to frighten or punish an ex-husband and the mother of his new children is not protection. It is manipulation with a nursery theme. The broader record doesn't help her case either, particularly the chilling detail of a husband burned alive, followed by no meaningful effort to keep his children connected to him during recovery. Add the instability of moving the children around incessantly rather than anchoring them in the home they knew, and the pattern becomes painfully clear. Parenting is treated as logistics, not love. Even worse is the choice to align with someone willing to harm a child emotionally, using the cruel claim that their father no longer loves them as a tactic to wound an ex. That is not a lapse in judgment. That is a character indictment. The comparison to Nina is inevitable and, frankly, earned. What looks like care is better described as possession. The children are framed less as people with needs and more as objects to claim. The show may want this to read as growth or courage, but what plays on screen is colder. Ownership masquerading as devotion. And hovering over it all is the growing desire for the exit door to hit a few characters on the way out. Sidwell and Marco first, with Ezra Boyd happily following. If the narrative intends to rebuild credibility, it could start by removing the villains who operate without limits, the institutions that function without purpose, and the character choices that treat intelligence as a temporary inconvenience. They don't write twists anymore. They just misplace entire murders and call it drama. Port Charles has always loved a good mystery, right up until it remembers it has the attention span of a soap opera. The murder of the judge, for instance, has apparently been filed under later, which is an impressive choice for a town that treats felonies like a hobby. An investigation would be useful. Names, motives, evidence, any of the traditional components of justice. Instead, the story pivots into the familiar ritual of everyone sprinting toward the next crisis while yesterday's corpse politely waits off camera. Naturally, the solution being floated is not solve the case, but start squeezing people until the truth falls out. Britt, for example, could stop circling the obvious and simply tell Jason what matters. Sidwell shot Dalton, and the gun did not materialize through divine intervention. The provenance of that weapon is not a decorative detail. It is the spine of the case. Yet the narrative insists on treating basic investigative logic like an optional upgrade. Then comes the suggestion of interrogation, which is a generous word for staging a torture spectacle. Marco is to be tormented in front of Sidwell until Sidwell confesses. Because nothing says airtight prosecution like coerced statements and public brutality. To sweeten the melodrama, Marco should also be compelled to end a relationship via handwritten note, lest a clingy lover become inconveniently emotional. Even in this town, where melodrama is currency, that is an astonishingly clinical attempt to micromanage someone else's life, as though human beings are props to be repositioned. The chaos is not helped by the show's other modern plague, misinformation dressed up as certainty. Finola Hughes's temporary absence from General Hospital has been treated as an open invitation for fabricated medical narratives, fueled by a long-running confusion between actor and character. Anna Devane's polycythemia vera storyline, introduced years ago, has repeatedly been misused as evidence that the performer has the same illness. She has been an advocate for awareness, yes, but advocacy is not autobiography. The most credible explanation remains the simplest. There is no reliable indication of a real-life medical leave in late 2025, and the on-screen kidnapping is a plot device designed to accommodate time away. The fixation on recycled, automated news is less concern and more a refusal to distinguish fiction from fact. Back in the fictional present, the show continues to specialize in selective omniscience. Laura somehow knows Cyrus is dead, as though the town issues death confirmations through telepathy. Meanwhile, a glaring absence hangs in the air. At some point, someone should ask where AJ went. Not as a sentimental aside, but as a basic narrative obligation. People do not simply vanish forever without the story paying rent on that disappearance. And because Port Charles never met a conspiracy it couldn't expand, Brennan and Sidwell are declared finished, not due to evidence, but because Charlotte loves Laura. And Valentin is aligned with Laura as well. The logic is charmingly feudal. Loyalty determines outcome, facts are negotiable. The proposed counterstrike is a greatest hits montage of power players: Sonny, Jason, Valentin, Britt, and a hopeful return of Nicholas, because nothing resolves conflict like assembling a team and announcing destiny. The fix for the current mess is presented as embarrassingly straightforward, which is always the first sign it will go terribly. Jocelyn could confess to Carly that she killed Cyrus, that Brennan covered it up, and that she was pushed into working for the WSB through coercion. Then, with a single cathartic admission, she could avoid being shipped off to some vaguely threatening foreign destination. Finland, Iceland, whichever cold place the plot needs this week. Sonny, naturally, would then enlist Brick, because Brick can do anything, to locate the gun and the evidence, ensuring Sidwell is convicted of killing Dalton. Or, failing that, eliminate Sidwell entirely to be safe, because nothing says moral clarity like swapping courtroom procedure for a conveniently timed execution. Meanwhile, Jocelyn is warned not to keep pressing Jack, because consequences are apparently real when the plot remembers to enforce them. Vaughn, in this framing, is a distraction, an accessory problem compared to the far more dangerous game being played with Brennan, Blackmail, and the kind of leverage that turns people into liabilities. To break the tension, a mock breaking news interlude appears, announcing an Eddie Mayne world tour with Noah Drake as an opening act, sold through an intentionally antique communications chain. The joke lands because it mirrors the broader issue. The story regularly behaves as though time, logic, and plausibility are flexible accessories. When reality becomes optional, farce is the only honest outcome. The speculation doesn't stop there. Britt's illness could be a misdirection, vials of sugar water instead of medicine, because Port Charles loves a medical twist almost as much as it loves a kidnapping. Sonny and Laura are also positioned as inevitabilities. They will not allow Sidwell to escape accountability. Jack, predictably, is labeled untrustworthy, and Carly is credited with knowing it already, because instinct is treated as a more reliable tool than investigation. Hovering above all of this, Osidious is the clearest critique. There is simply too much blackmail. The show has become a crowded marketplace of secrets, threats, cover-ups, and coercion, with everyone holding leverage and no one behaving like an adult. At a certain point, drama stops being drama and becomes administrative noise. The prescription is blunt. Let the characters live their daily lives again. Port Charles already has enough chaos without turning every conversation into an extortion negotiation and every storyline into a hostage situation, literal or emotional. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Sam's death looks less like tragedy and more like inventory. The least ambitious request in the world would be basic restraint with spoilers, perhaps waiting until the evening before detonating major plot points in public view. Yet here things arrive early, loudly, and with all the subtlety of a confession shouted through a megaphone. As for the story itself, logic continues to be treated as an optional accessory. Anna vanishing with the WSB, after routinely warning everyone else not to get entangled in that exact mess, lands with the grace of a plot twist written in haste. The silence toward Emma only compounds it. No call, no text, no acknowledgement. The narrative expects the audience to accept that maternal concern simply takes a night off when espionage appears on the schedule. Meanwhile, Sidwell has transitioned from problem to imminent catastrophe, and the reason is painfully straightforward. Britt witnessed what happened to Dalton. Sonny, Laura, and Jason may already understand Sidwell is responsible, but the detail that actually matters, the existence of an eyewitness, remains conveniently unshared. Naturally, this sets Britt up as the next target, because nothing says safety like being the one person who can confirm the villain's crime without inference. Britt's medical situation, of course, is being framed less like a diagnosis and more like a long con. The implication is that her medication is keeping Huntington's in remission, but only barely, and that what she truly needs is live stem cells from an age-matched donor. Enter the kind of explanation daytime drama adores. Samantha McCall's death was faked so she could be harvested and used as a stem cell life support system for Britt all along. It is not merely a theory, it is a worldview, one where bodies become inventory and funerals are paperwork. And once that door opens, why stop at one missing person? The same shadowy logic suggests Spencer and Esme could also be tucked away somewhere off-screen, preserved for later use. Even Cyrus gets pulled into the web, especially given the detail that Brennan was supposedly tasked with disposing of him. Yet Cyrus is also linked to administering the shot that took out Sam. It is a neat circle of suspicion. Everyone is dead until proven useful, and everyone useful is suspiciously not dead. Dex, by the same convenient principle, may not be dead either. While the adults trade in crimes, cover-ups, and surgical-grade deception, Trina provides the parallel storyline of emotional regression. The desire to be treated like a grown woman loses persuasive force when paired with behavior that treats a parental divorce like a personal apocalypse. Independence cannot be demanded while performing helplessness on cue. Laura, at least, speaks with the confidence of someone who has survived worse, and that's saying something. If the story had any appetite for catharsis, it would offer the simplest pleasure. Luke returning for a brief cameo to eliminate Sidwell and restore a little moral balance. And since Luke's body was never found, the show has already stocked the shelf with the perfect excuse. Sidwell may believe he's intimidating the right people, but this is the kind of universe where "never found the body" is practically a resurrection clause. The speculation doesn't stop with Sidwell's enemies. It expands to his potential allies. Kevin as Sidwell's silent partner would be an especially surgical betrayal, made more enticing by the notion that Sidwell could somehow be Kevin's evil twin, Ryan. Laura confiding in Kevin would then read less like trust and more like the show tightening a noose. There's also the even more unhinged possibility that Kevin isn't real at all. Another phantom in a dreamlike haze, alongside figures like Cyrus and Esme, suggesting Laura is still trapped in some extended psychological detour disguised as narrative complexity. If the characters wanted to stop reacting and start winning, the solution is almost insultingly obvious. Record Sidwell bragging, capture the threats in his own words, and blackmail the blackmailer. Turn the tables, make him sweat for once. The tragedy is that the show often treats competent strategy as a rare guest star. And for anyone navigating the surrounding commentary ecosystem, anonymous provocation remains a predictable hazard. Accounts presenting as legitimate while offering nothing but bait, empty profiles, inflammatory takes, rapid blocking when challenged, are not mysteries, just noise in costume. One final note of anticipation. There is a distinct eagerness to watch Drew lose everything, including Scout. Not gradually, not politely, comprehensively, because if the show insists on rewarding chaos, it may as well deliver the occasional downfall with commitment. General Hospital spoilers and updates suggest that jury tampering might influence the outcome of Willow Kane's trial. Will someone go to such extreme measures to ensure that Willow's verdict turns out in their favor? Sonny Corinthos has a history of jury tampering, having previously had Dex Heller intimidate the jury foreman during Trina Robinson's trial. Although it ultimately proved unnecessary since Trina was exonerated through other means, Sonny was prepared to take such drastic actions to assist her. Willow, being the mother of Sonny's grandchildren and the daughter of Nina Reeves, holds a special place in his heart. Sonny will always have a soft spot for Nina and will want to prevent her from witnessing her child being imprisoned again. Additionally, Sonny has made it clear to Michael that he believes it would be in everyone's best interest if Willow is acquitted. Even though Michael disagrees with him, Sonny is determined to prevent Willow from facing consequences for something he believes she is innocent of. Sonny prefers to see the entire issue resolved, which he thinks will occur if Willow is cleared of the charges. One could envision Sonny engaging in jury tampering if he believes it could be Willow's final chance to avoid prison. Nevertheless, there are alternative scenarios to ponder if there is going to be interference with Willow's jury. Drew Cain might also consider that option if he worries that his new wife won't be exonerated through any other means. On the other hand, some GH characters might interfere with the jury to ensure that Willow is punished for this, whether she actually did it or not. If Selena Wu's hitman did shoot Drew, and she wants to eliminate any further rumors about the crime, she would have a reason to make sure Willow is found guilty. Michael might also be a possible option if he actually did frame Willow for Drew's shooting. It's possible that Michael could escalate things by arranging jury tampering to keep Willow away from the children for good. Regardless of the situation, there's no certainty that Willow will receive a fair trial. Whether she is guilty or innocent, there's always a possibility that jury tampering could alter her outcome. General Hospital spoilers are in for the week of December 8th, 2025. Fans can expect Justine Turner to have a plan. Valentine Cassadine escapes. Plus, Nathan West arrests someone. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Valentine, who has escaped. Jack Brennan and Dante Falconeri have heard the alarming news. Dante tells Nathan in a preview clip that there is nothing Valentine won't do to get to Charlotte Cassadine. Carly discovers that her intruder is Valentine. The man looks pretty deranged, with his eyes bugging out. His face is scratched up, and he looks like he's been in some dirty places. However, pretty early in the week, Charlotte ends up being relieved. As much as she loves her father, she knows he can do some pretty extreme things. Plus, Lulu has gotten used to life back in Port Charles. The very next day, on Wednesday, Nathan makes an arrest. Is it Valentine or someone else? General Hospital spoilers for the next week reveal that Laura Collins and Sonny Corinthos compare notes. Michael Corinthos gets closer to Jacinda Breckel. Michael will also ask Christina Corinthos Davis for help. Marco Rios romances Lucas Jones. Gen Z Sidwell makes an offer. However, he's not the only villain to deal with a proposition. Drew Cain is on the receiving end of a shocking deal. Elsewhere, Alexis puts Willow Tate Cain to the test. Jason Morgan watches over a passed-out Britt Westbourne. As for what else to expect next week, Justine goes over her plan. Plus, Molly Lansing Davis shares a secret. Will Molly confide in someone about seeing Britt dancing with Cody Bell? Even though it was a misunderstanding on Cody and Molly's part, Britt really made things a whole lot worse. Cody isn't even aware that Molly saw the dance and almost kissed. So, when she starts ghosting his calls and making excuses to avoid him, Cody might start asking questions. Can this sweet romance be saved before they both go their separate ways for good? Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most during the week of December 8th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next. General Hospital spoilers say that when it comes to Britt Westbourne, it seems like there are more viewers that are tuning out than tuning in whenever they see her on the small screen. In fact, many viewers believe that the only reason why the producers even brought the character back on the show is because Steve Burton might or might not have pulled his influence in ensuring that his character is romantically linked. Ed to Britt again. But is this a pairing that is even working anymore? And even worse, does anyone even care about Britt and Jason? That's what a lot of people want to know. Of course, GH fans certainly did have a lot to say about the matter on social media. Some even commented with, "I know Steve Burton wanted to give this a try of a real chance story-wise, as he had said when talking to the Brit actress on his podcast, but the writers are those who gave us Willow and fumbled Nathan's return." Fans want Sam alive and Drew dead, or Willow and him over. They have nothing likable with her, all mean and nasty, and throw Carly in Jason's face when she messes up. Another critic of the show wrote, "Britt's return is a bigger dud than the return of Luckless. Neither helped the ratings, neither was necessarily needed back on the canvas. The forced pairing of Jason and Britt is even turning off longtime Jason fans." And then there was this comment as well. "I was done before she even returned. I saw the writing on the wall." "She's the worst" has brought nothing to the show. If anything, has turned Jason, usually strong, into a weak character. I can't wait for her next death scene. For now, don't forget that General Hospital airs weekdays on the ABC network. Check your local listings for times. In the meantime, let us know what you think by leaving us a line with your thoughts in our comments section below. General Hospital spoilers show that things may take a dire turn with pregnant Portia Robinson. If so, will she blame her foe Jordan Ashford for her miscarriage? Portia is in the midst of a midlife pregnancy and doing everything she can to protect her baby. Nonetheless, Portia has been non-stop drama the last few days, fussing and fighting left and right. She had it out with Nina Reeves at the Brown Dog Bar, and she's lucky no one got hurt. Nina and Portia argued in the bathroom and things got heated. The ladies grabbed each other and tugged the other one around the room. Luckily, Portia did not fall, as that would have been dangerous for the unborn baby. Fans think that Portia acting this recklessly could portend dark times ahead. Along with Nina, Portia is also clashing with Jordan. The women are fighting over Curtis Ashford, whereas Nina snitched out Nina to the authorities. Just as Nina and Portia went at it, we predict that Jordan and Portia will also have a catfight. Portia was willing to get physical with Nina, and she hates Jordan a whole lot more. If these two ladies do get physical, there is no telling the harm that could be caused to Portia's fetus. We all know that Jordan doesn't have it in her to intentionally harm Portia or her unborn child, but things can happen in the heat of the moment. Maybe Portia slaps Jordan, who in turn gives her a little push off of her. If Portia loses her balance and falls, there could be consequences. If Portia were to lose her baby, she could blame Jordan and turn Curtis Ashford against her. Of course, the baby may not even be Curtis's, but that's a whole other story for another time. Portia's behavior is getting more and more frazzled as the days of secrecy wear on. We can see her reaching her wit's end and doing something spontaneously wild that compromises her pregnancy. Red Hot General Hospital spoilers hint that Portia, Curtis, and Jordan have more roadblocks ahead, so stay tuned for updates about this enticing plot. General Hospital spoilers and updates suggest that we should seriously consider the intriguing possibility of Jacinda Bracken's unexpected pregnancy. This could potentially lead to a new addition to Michael Corinthos' family. Is it possible that Jacinda is expecting after the passionate evening she just experienced with Michael? Even if we take into account the use of birth control, especially given Jacinda's past profession, it's important to remember that it's not always 100% reliable. This is particularly true in the world of soap operas, where unplanned pregnancies are a common occurrence. Some might argue that Michael already has enough children, and they would likely have a valid point. However, it seems that Michael could very well follow in the footsteps of Sonny Corinthos and begin to have numerous children with various partners. Additionally, Michael was left heartbroken when Sasha Gilmore Corbin departed from town alongside Daisy Gilmore. Despite Michael's deep affection for Daisy, he is not involved in her life or upbringing now that she is so distant. In essence, Michael has 3 children, but Daisy's absence means she doesn't truly count in his day-to-day existence. Only Wiley Corinthos and Amelia Corinthos are present in Michael's everyday life, leaving space for another child to join the family. However, Jacinda's unexpected pregnancy could create complications for Michael regarding custody of Amelia and Wiley. It wouldn't reflect well on Michael to have gotten a prominent escort from Port Charles pregnant. This situation could potentially benefit Willow Kane if she successfully clears her name in the Drew Kane shooting case. Willow is determined to fight for Wiley and Amelia, so it will be interesting to see how that unfolds. Nevertheless, Jacinda's surprise pregnancy could provide some advantages for Michael in terms of the fabricated alibi he is attempting to establish. He might leverage Jacinda's potential pregnancy to validate their relationship. This could bolster Michael's alibi, at least until Harrison Chase inevitably uncovers that Jacinda was with Ezra Boyle on the night of Drew's shooting, which would complicate matters. In any case, the writers of GH could introduce another layer of chaos if Jacinda turns out to be pregnant with Michael's child. General Hospital spoilers indicate that Michael faces more challenges ahead, so keep an eye out for any significant updates that may be coming soon. General Hospital spoilers spill. Tracy Quartermain has been hanging onto a secret for months. She was at Drew Kane's house on the night he was shot. We all know that, much as she was the one who found him and called the paramedics. But what she hasn't shared is that she saw Michael Corinthos there that night. Early in the investigation, she confronted Michael out of an abundance of caution and concern that he may have been the one who shot Drew, but he insisted he didn't. So she hasn't brought it up again.
Okay.
And it looks like she believed him. Still, Tracy sharing this intel with Brooklyn Quartermain could leave her granddaughter in a tight spot with hubby Harrison Chase, who thinks Michael is guilty of not only shooting Drew, but framing Willow Tate. Tracy has been out of town ever since she found out she inherited the Quartermain mansion from Monica Quartermain. We expect she's going to be blowing back into town any time now, given that her son, Ned Quartermain, just suffered a major heart attack and is enduring bypass surgery to save his life. Will Tracy's return to Port Charles dovetail with Alexis Davis' plan to accept Harrison Chase's help in exposing Michael's fake alibi? If so, could Tracy end up feeling compelled to tell Brooklyn the truth about seeing Michael at Drew's house the night he was shot? Just before Ned's heart attack took center stage, Brooklyn and Chase were having it out over Michael and Willow. Chase is firm in his belief that Willow could not have and did not shoot Drew. Furthermore, he's pretty certain that Michael did, and that he's framing his ex-wife for the crime. Learning that he was unofficially investigating the case of the clock left Brooklyn feeling uneasy about her husband's willingness to jeopardize his career for his ex. Still, she let it slide. But if she is gearing up to support Michael and go against her husband, Tracy just might clue her in to let her know Michael could possibly be as guilty as Chase suspects. Tracy's intention in sharing what she knows with Brooklyn will have little to do with harming Michael. She would certainly never want it to get back to Chase or anyone else that she can corroborate Michael being at Drew's place that night. However, thus, Brooklyn may have the insight of knowing Chase could be more over target than she's giving him credit for, but she won't have the ability to tell him without possibly helping to send Michael to prison. Will Brooklyn's secret intel, and her willingness to keep it from Chase, be the final secretive straw that breaks this marriage apart? Share your thoughts with us, and keep checking back for more GH news and spoilers every day. General Hospital spoilers are in for the week of December 8th, 2025. Fans can expect Justine Turner to put a scheme in motion. Carly Spencer is ambushed by Valentine Cassadine. Plus, Laura Collins and Sonny Corinthos compare notes. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Carly and Valentine. Fans know that Carly wanted revenge on Jack Brennan. The woman has been playing Jack while secretly working with Valentine. However, it seems that Carly might realize that was a mistake. Carly is ambushed in her home by an escaped Valentine. When she orders him to get out of her house right now, Valentine just stands there. Something dark is in Valentine's eyes, and I worry that Carly has put herself in danger. Dante Falconeri warns Nathan West that Valentine will do whatever it takes to get to Charlotte Cassadine. However, on Tuesday, Charlotte is relieved. Then, the next day, Nathan makes an arrest. General Hospital spoilers for the next week reveal that Laura and Sonny meet up to compare notes. Meanwhile, Jacinda Brekel and Michael Corinthos get even closer. It is also stated that Michael needs a favor from Christina Corinthos Davis. Marco Rios will do his best to woo Lucas Jones. Jen Sidwell has a shocking offer for someone. Plus, Drew Kane has his own shocking offer to deal with. Alexis Davis tests Willow Tate Kane. Jason Morgan will stand watch over Britt Westbourne. As for what else to expect, Justine has a plan and explains her next move. Also, Molly Lansing Davis tells someone a secret. Will she open up about seeing Cody Bell and Britt dancing together? Even though Britt tried to get a kiss from Cody, he pushed her away. Molly didn't see that part, though. Cody has no idea that Molly saw him with Britt. So, Cody might think that Molly just never showed up. Can this romance be saved from yet another horrible misunderstanding? Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most during the week of December 8th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next. General Hospital spoilers hint that Molly Lansing Davis's love life will be derailed. Does Molly deserve better than Cody Bell and his romantic blunders? GH fans know Molly went through a rough time after the loss of the baby and her split from TJ Ashford. Molly could use some love and happiness, but is Cody the right person to give her those things? Cody definitely has feelings for Molly, who's drawn to him too, despite trying to fight those feelings initially. Molly and Cody recently shared a dance together at Brown Dog Bar, so it looked like they were finally on the verge of moving this romance along. Unfortunately, there may be some new difficulties during the week of December 5. General Hospital spoilers for the December 4th episode indicate that Molly will feel the sting of a setback. It sounds like there'll be some situation that leaves Molly feeling upset and rejected. Cody has a knack for pulling away because of his own insecurities, so he might turn down a date or ghost Molly when she tries to reach out. This might even be about the secrets Cody's keeping and the lies he's told. Cody went along with the fake story about finding Rick Lansing while out walking with Outback, but that's not what really happened. Molly has been praising Cody as the hero who saved Rick after his cult escape, but Rick was actually held captive by Alexis Davis, Ava Jerome, and Christina Corinthos Davis in the basement. Of course, Alexis and the others are hoping to keep Molly out of the loop on Rick's time in captivity. That way, they can also keep Molly in the dark on the blackmail drama and the fact that Christina nearly killed Rick by accidentally sabotaging his car instead of Ava's. Even so, Cody may struggle with some guilt since he's deceiving Molly. It isn't a great way to start off a relationship and could be the reason Cody perhaps leaves Molly feeling rebuffed in the week ahead. How do you feel about Cody and Molly as a potential couple? Do you think Molly deserves better? Or are you hopeful about Cody being the right man for her? General Hospital spoilers say Cody and Molly will have more issues to work through if they hope to have a real future together, so we'll bring you updates on any relationship status news. SOS will have all the exciting GH spoilers, news and updates you need, so make us your #1 source.